This is the story of a girl named Liz Murray. She was born in New York City in 1980. Her life was not easy from the very beginning. She grew up in a small apartment with her parents and her sister. But her parents had big problems. They were addicted to drugs. Addiction means that they could not stop using drugs, even when it hurt them and their family. Because of this, there was never enough money in the house. Many days, there was no food in the kitchen. The rooms were dirty, and the family could not take care of basic things. Liz was only a small child, but she already felt the heavy weight of poverty. She looked around and saw other children going to school with clean clothes and full lunches. But in her own life, things were very different. From the outside, Liz seemed like just another child in the city. But inside, she was carrying a secret story of hunger, sadness, and struggle. One day, she would change her life completely. One day, she would move from being homeless to studying at Harvard University, one of the best schools in the world. But at this point, she was only a little girl, living in a broken home, wondering if life would ever get better. Liz's parents loved her in their own way, but their love was not enough. Drugs controlled their lives. Many times, her mother and father were too tired or too sick to take care of their children. They would spend money on drugs instead of food. Liz and her sister often went to bed hungry. Sometimes, they had nothing to eat for days. The refrigerator was empty, and the sink was full of dirty dishes. Their apartment smelled bad, and there was no peace inside. Liz felt embarrassed when she compared her family with others. At school, she could see that her classmates had books, toys, and lunches. But she had very little. Children at school noticed this. Some of them made fun of her. They teased her about her dirty clothes and her hungry stomach. She felt invisible, unwanted, and different. She wanted to disappear so people would stop looking at her with pity. Inside, Liz began to believe she was not good enough. But at the same time, there was a small voice inside her that said, maybe life can be different. Maybe I can change my story. That small hope would one day grow into something powerful. When Liz was a young girl, she dreamed about simple things. She wanted to eat a warm meal every night. She wanted clean clothes and a safe bed. These were not big dreams, but in her world, they felt impossible. Her parents could not keep jobs. Sometimes, her father would leave for days. When he returned, he had no money, no food, and no plan. Her mother was often sick and weak from using drugs. Liz and her sister tried to take care of themselves, but they were only children. They lived in fear that social workers would come and take them away. The house was always cold in winter. In summer, the heat was strong, and there was no air conditioning. Liz often sat by the window, looking out at the world, wondering why her life was so hard. She wished for normal things that most children had, a birthday cake, a trip to the park, a hug from her parents without sadness. The pain of her childhood shaped her heart. She learned early that life was not fair. But deep inside, she also learned to be strong. School was not easy for Liz. She went to class, but her mind was full of worries from home. Sometimes, she fell asleep in class because she had not eaten. Sometimes, she could not finish her homework because there was no light in the house. Teachers did not always understand. Some thought she was lazy. Other students laughed at her because she looked different. She wore the same clothes again and again. She smelled like her dirty apartment. She felt ashamed, but she did not know how to change it. At the same time, she felt invisible. No one seemed to notice her real pain. She wanted someone to ask, "Are you okay?" but no one did. Slowly, she started skipping school. It felt easier to hide than to face the cruel words of others. She began to believe that education was not for her. Maybe I am not smart, she thought. Maybe I will always be poor, like my parents. But even when she tried to ignore school, deep in her heart she knew learning could be a way out. She just did not yet know how to find the strength. By the time Liz was a teenager, her world was falling apart even more. Her mother became very sick. She was diagnosed with AIDS, a disease that came from years of drug use. Liz loved her mother, even with all her problems. Seeing her suffer broke Liz's heart. Her father could not help. He was lost in his own world of addiction. The family's small home became darker and sadder every day. Sometimes, there was no heat, no food, and no comfort. Liz started spending nights away from home. She stayed with friends or wandered the streets. At age 15, she found herself without a real home. She was homeless. She slept on park benches, in subway trains, and sometimes on the floor of friends' apartments. It was a hard, cold, and lonely life. But in the middle of this pain, something began to change inside Liz. She looked at her life and thought, if I do nothing, this will be my future forever. I must do something different. This moment of realization became the beginning of a new chapter. A chapter that would one day take her all the way to Harvard. Homeless life was very hard for Liz. At night, she tried to find a safe place to sleep. Sometimes she stayed on the subway, riding the train all night so she would not have to sleep outside in the cold. Other times, she asked friends if she could sleep on their couch or on the floor. She carried her few belongings in a small bag. There were no warm meals waiting for her, no bed, and no comfort. Every day was about survival. She worried about food, safety, and where she would sleep next. But inside her heart, something important was growing. She began to realize that even though she had almost nothing, she still had her mind. She still had the ability to learn and to dream. The world outside seemed cruel, but she started to believe that education could be her key to escape. She told herself, I cannot change my past, but maybe I can change my future. This new thought gave her energy. It was not easy, but it gave her hope to hold on to. While Liz was living on the streets, she faced many moments of despair. Sometimes she wanted to give up. She was only a teenager, and life felt too heavy for her young shoulders. She saw other young people laughing, going to movies, and living normal teenage lives. She felt different and alone. Hunger was her daily companion. She often had to ask strangers for food or depend on the kindness of friends. Winter was the worst. The nights were freezing, and she wrapped herself in old clothes to stay warm. Yet, in the middle of all this suffering, she found courage. Including herself. Then came the hardest moment of Liz's young life. Her mother, the person she loved most, died from AIDS. Liz was only 15 years old when she lost her mother forever. The pain was so deep that words could not describe it. She felt broken. She cried and cried, but no amount of tears could bring her mother back. For a time, she felt completely lost. She thought, now I am truly alone in the world. Many people in her situation might have given up. It seemed easier to stop fighting. But Liz discovered something inside her heart. She realized that her mother's death could either destroy her or push her to live differently. She thought about the lessons she had learned from her hard life. She thought about the hunger, the cold, the shame, and the sadness. Then she made a choice. She told herself, if I do nothing, nothing will change. But if I try, maybe something new can happen. This was a turning point. Out of her greatest loss came her first real step toward a better life. After her mother's death, Liz made a brave decision. She chose to return to school. Imagine this, a homeless teenager, with no parents, no home, and no money, deciding to go back to high school. Many people would say it was impossible. But Liz did not listen to the voices of doubt. She listened to the small but strong voice inside her heart. She walked back into the school building with determination. She had nothing, not even proper clothes, but she had a dream. Teachers were surprised when they saw her new attitude. She started studying hard, reading books late at night, and writing essays wherever she could find light. Sometimes she studied in hallways. Sometimes she studied on the subway. She did not care about the noise or the discomfort. She cared only about learning. She knew education was her chance, maybe her only chance, to escape poverty. Each day, she reminded herself, I am not my past. I am my future. This mindset gave her the power to keep moving forward. Liz's hard work quickly showed results. In just 2 years, she completed 4 years of high school. This was an incredible achievement. Most students take 4 years, but Liz did it in half the time while being homeless. She worked harder than anyone else because she knew her future depended on it. Teachers began to notice her determination. They saw how serious she was about education. Some teachers offered her extra help. They encouraged her, and for the first time in her life, she felt truly seen. She was no longer invisible. She was no longer the girl who disappeared in the back of the class. She was the girl who fought against every obstacle to succeed. At night, when she was tired and hungry, she thought about her mother. She thought about the promise she made to herself to live a different life. This gave her strength to continue. Liz was moving from hopelessness to hope, from the streets to the classroom, from despair to determination. Her journey was only beginning, but now she had a direction. She was walking toward her dream. As Liz worked her way through school, she faced new challenges every day. She was still homeless. She still did not have a safe place to sleep or enough food to eat. Many nights, she studied on staircases or inside the subway, using the little light she could find. Sometimes she was so tired that her eyes closed on the pages of her books. But even then, she pushed herself to continue. I cannot stop now, she told herself. I have already lost so much. I will not lose my future too. This strong determination became her shield against despair. Other students had homes, meals, and parents to help them. Liz had none of that. But she had something stronger, a reason to fight. She believed that if she worked hard, she could escape the life of poverty and addiction that had trapped her family. Every page she read and every problem she solved became a step toward freedom. For Liz, school was not just about learning facts. It was about survival. It was about building a new identity. Teachers began to see the fire in Liz's eyes. They noticed how serious she was about her studies. One teacher said, "Liz, you are one of the most determined students I have ever met." For the first time in her life, Liz felt recognized for her effort, not judged for her poverty. This gave her courage to keep going. She stayed late after school, asking questions and doing extra work. She wrote essays with passion, using her painful life as inspiration. She told herself, "My past is not a weight anymore. It is my fuel." Every failure became a lesson, every difficulty became a challenge to overcome. Slowly, Liz's grades improved. She moved from being invisible to standing at the top of her class. This transformation was not easy. There were still nights of hunger, still mornings of exhaustion. But she kept her dream alive. She believed that education was her ticket to a better life. Her teachers became her allies, and the classroom became her safe place. It was the one place where her dreams felt possible. During this time, Liz also discovered the power of writing. She wrote about her experiences, her pain, and her dreams. Writing helped her process the chaos of her life. It also showed her teachers the strength of her spirit. When she wrote essays, her words were simple but full of truth. She wrote about what it felt like to be hungry. She wrote about the sadness of losing her mother. She wrote about sleeping on trains at night. Her honesty touched everyone who read her work. Some teachers cried when they saw the pain behind her words. They realized that Liz was not just another student. She was a fighter. She was someone who refused to give up. Through writing, Liz found her voice. She discovered that her story mattered. And when she understood that her story mattered, she also began to believe that she mattered. This belief changed everything. It gave her a reason to wake up each day and keep going. One day, an important opportunity came. A teacher told Liz about a scholarship program supported by the New York Times. The scholarship was for students who had faced big struggles but still worked hard in school. Liz listened carefully. She thought, this is my chance. This could change everything. She decided to apply. But to win, she had to write about her life. At first, she was nervous. She wondered if people would judge her for being homeless. She wondered if her pain would sound too heavy. But then she remembered how writing had given her strength before. So she picked up her pen and began to tell her story. She wrote with honesty and courage. She shared about her parents' addiction, her mother's death, her nights on the subway, and her fight to stay in school. She ended her essay with hope. I want to use my education to create a better future, not just for myself, but for others too. When she finished, she felt proud. No matter the result, she knew she had spoken her truth. Weeks later, Liz received news that changed her life forever. She had won the scholarship. The judges were deeply moved by her story and her courage. They saw a young woman who had suffered greatly but had refused to give up. They wanted to give her a chance. Liz could not believe it. Tears ran down her face as she held the letter in her hands. She thought about her mother. She thought about the cold nights on park benches. She thought about all the times people told her she would never succeed. And now, here was proof that they were wrong. The scholarship opened the door to something even bigger, the possibility of going to Harvard University, one of the best schools in the world. At first, the idea seemed impossible. Harvard was for rich kids, for geniuses, for people with perfect lives. But then Liz remembered how far she had already come. She whispered to herself. Why not me? That question gave her the courage to dream bigger than ever before. After winning the scholarship, Liz felt a new kind of hope. For the first time, she saw a real path to a better future. But she also knew that the road ahead would not be easy. Harvard University was one of the best schools in the world. Only a few students were accepted each year, and most of them came from strong families with money, connections, and years of preparation. Liz had none of those things. She was still homeless, still struggling every single day. But she remembered how she had already beaten the odds by finishing high school in just 2 years. If she could do that, maybe she could also take this next step. Liz began researching about Harvard. She read about its long history, its professors, and its students. She learned that Harvard looked for people with not only good grades but also strong character. She thought, maybe my story will show them my strength. This thought gave her courage. She decided to try, even if the chance was small. She told herself, I have nothing to lose and everything to gain. Applying to Harvard was a huge task. Liz worked carefully on her application. She wrote essays about her life, her struggles, and her dream of making a difference. She shared how she had grown up in poverty, how she had lost her mother, and how she had studied even while homeless. She did not hide her past. Instead, she used it as her strength. She wanted Harvard to see not just her pain but also her determination. When she wrote, her words were filled with truth and courage. She explained that education had saved her life, and she wanted to use it to help others. She filled out forms, collected recommendations, and prepared every detail with care. It was not easy. Sometimes she doubted herself. She thought, maybe they will reject me. Maybe I am not good enough. But then she remembered her mother's face and the promise she made to herself. She refused to give up. She sent in her application, and with it, she sent all her hope for a new beginning. The waiting period was the hardest part. Every day, Liz checked the mail, hoping for news from Harvard. She tried to stay busy with schoolwork and her job, but inside, her heart was restless. At night, When she lay down on a friend's couch or in a cold corner of the subway, she thought about what life at Harvard might look like. She imagined walking across the campus with books in her hands, sitting in classrooms with brilliant professors, and having a dorm room of her own, a safe and warm place she had never truly known. She prayed for a chance. She told herself, even if they say no, I will keep going. But if they say yes, my life will change forever. The days felt long, and the waiting felt endless. Still, Liz held on to hope. She had already come so far, and she believed that miracles were possible. Finally, the letter arrived. Liz opened the envelope with shaking hands. Her eyes filled with tears as she read the words, "Congratulations. You have been accepted to Harvard University." In that moment, time seemed to stop. She remembered the little girl who had gone to bed hungry, the teenager who had slept on trains, and the daughter who had lost her mother too soon. She remembered all the nights of fear and loneliness. And now, she was accepted into one of the best schools in the world. She cried, not out of sadness, but out of joy and relief. She realized that her hard work, her courage, and her hope had brought her here. Against all odds, the homeless girl from the Bronx was now a Harvard student. It was not just her victory. It was a message to everyone who had ever been told they were not good enough: dreams can come true. Liz's acceptance to Harvard was not just a personal success. It was a symbol of hope for many people. Newspapers wrote about her story, and strangers sent her letters of support. People were amazed that a girl who had once lived on the streets could now walk the halls of Harvard. But for Liz, it was more than fame. It was about proving that the past does not decide the future. She knew she still had a long journey ahead. Harvard would be difficult, and she would have to keep working hard. But now she had a place to belong. She had a chance to learn, to grow, and to build a life she had once thought impossible. Standing at the gates of Harvard for the first time, Liz felt nervous but proud. She whispered to herself, I made it this far. Now I will go even further. With those words, she stepped into her new life. Liz's first days at Harvard were exciting but also scary. She had finally reached a place she had once thought was impossible. The campus was beautiful, with tall buildings, green grass, and libraries full of books. But Liz felt out of place. Most students came from rich families. They wore expensive clothes, talked about vacations in other countries, and had parents who were doctors, lawyers, or professors. Liz was different. She had been homeless. She had no family support, no savings, and no safety net. At first, she stayed quiet in class. She was afraid that her classmates would laugh at her or think she did not belong. But slowly, she began to see that she was just as smart as the others. Her hard life had given her strength and a unique point of view. She realized she did not need to hide her story. She needed to embrace it. Each day, she walked across campus and reminded herself, I worked hard to be here. I belong here. Harvard was full of challenges. The classes were tough, and the professors expected a lot. Liz had to read hundreds of pages, write long essays, and prepare for difficult exams. Many times, she stayed up all night studying. She remembered what it was like to study in the subway or in dark hallways. Compared to that, a library with lights and quiet felt like a gift. Even when she felt tired, she pushed herself. If I could survive homelessness, I can survive Harvard, she told herself. Slowly, she built confidence. She learned how to manage her time, how to ask questions, and how to use resources on campus. Education was not easy, but Liz enjoyed learning new ideas. She felt her mind growing stronger every day. For her, Harvard was not only a school. It was a dream come true, proof that hard work and courage could change a life. At Harvard, Liz began to make friends. She met students from all over the world. Some were surprised when they heard her story. They could not believe that a girl who once slept on trains was now their classmate. Liz started to share her experiences more openly. She spoke about poverty, homelessness, and the power of education. Her honesty touched people. Professors respected her, and students admired her. Liz realized that her story could inspire others. She started giving talks, first in small groups, then at larger events. She wanted people to know that it was possible to rise above pain and struggle. Every time she told her story, she felt stronger. She thought about her younger self and wished she could tell that little girl, "One day, you will stand here, not broken, but shining." Sharing her story became part of her mission. Even with success, Liz never forgot her past. She remembered cold nights on the streets, hunger in her stomach, and fear in her heart. She remembered her mother's love and loss. These memories made her humble and grateful. They also made her determined to help others. Liz began working with teenagers who faced poverty, drugs, or homelessness. She encouraged them to stay in school and believe in themselves. She told them, "I was like you. If I can make it, you can too." Many young people looked at her and felt hope for the first time. Liz's life had taught her compassion. She understood pain because she had lived it. She wanted to use her education not only for herself but also for others. Harvard gave her knowledge, but her past gave her a mission, to spread hope. Graduation day finally came. Liz put on her black gown and cap. As she walked across the stage to receive her Harvard diploma, she felt tears in her eyes. She remembered the hungry nights, the dirty apartment, the benches in the park, and the trains where she slept. She thought about her mother and wished she were there to see this moment. The audience clapped loudly, and some even cried. Liz had done something extraordinary. She had turned suffering into strength. She had taken a broken childhood and created a bright future. Her diploma was not only a piece of paper. It was a symbol of courage, hard work, and belief in dreams. She had proven that the past does not control the future. After Harvard, Liz decided to share her story with the world. She became a motivational speaker and writer. She gave talks at schools, conferences, and events. She told audiences about her childhood, her struggles, and her path to Harvard. People listened carefully because her story was real. She did not hide the pain, but she also showed the hope. She said, "You are more than your circumstances. You can change your life." Her words gave courage to teenagers, parents, and even teachers. She became a symbol of resilience, someone who showed that even in the darkest times, there is always light. Liz turned her life story into a message that inspired thousands of people. Looking back, Liz saw that every challenge had taught her something. Hunger taught her strength. Homelessness taught her creativity. Loss taught her compassion. These experiences were hard, but they gave her wisdom that few others had. She realized that her pain had become her teacher. Instead of destroying her, it shaped her into a strong and determined woman. She no longer felt ashamed of her past. She felt grateful, because her past gave her a voice that could inspire others. Liz understood something important: the worst struggles can prepare us for the greatest victories. Liz's story reminds us that change is possible. No matter how dark life may seem, there is always a way forward. Sometimes the way is difficult. Sometimes it feels impossible. But hope, courage, and education can open doors. Liz showed that one decision, to return to school, can change everything. She proved that one opportunity, like a scholarship, can lead to a new life. Her story teaches us that our choices matter, even small ones. Every step counts. Every effort builds a future. And no dream is too big if we are willing to work for it. For English learners reading this story, there is an important lesson. Learning a language is not easy. It takes time, practice, and patience. Sometimes you may feel like giving up. But remember Liz. She studied in the subway, hungry and tired, and still kept going. She believed that education could save her, and it did. Just like her, you can keep learning step by step. Every new word, every new sentence, is progress. Do not let mistakes stop you. Mistakes are part of the journey. Believe in yourself, keep practicing, and remember, small efforts create big changes over time. In the end, Liz Murray's story is about hope, courage, and the power of education. She went from the streets of New York to the classrooms of Harvard. She lost almost everything, but she never lost her dream. She teaches us that our past does not decide our future. Pain can become strength. Struggle can become success. And learning can open doors we never imagined. For you, the reader, take this story as inspiration. Whatever your goal, learning English, finishing school, or chasing a dream, keep going. Do not give up. Believe in yourself. Just like Liz, you can rise above your challenges and build a brighter future.